Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Manxiety Podcast.
We're your hosts, Ashad and Matt. Before we get started, if you're enjoying this show, please subscribe so you can get notified of new episodes.
If you want to share this with your friends, you can find us on all podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
A quick note before we jump into the episode. The interview was slightly longer than our regular episode, so we've cut it into two separate parts. Part 1 you'll be listening to shortly, and Part 2 will be coming out next week, and it will be a continuation of Part 1 along with some breathing exercises that you can partake in. And now, back to the episode.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Manxiety Podcast. It's your boy, Matt, here with the shot and our wonderful special guest. We told you last episode, if you caught the tail end of it, Ashad was saying that there's going to be an amazing episode coming up that was supposed to be a surprise. Again, you know what the episode title is, obviously, because you're...
And I wasn't lying.
Downloaded the damn thing. Anyways, what I want everybody to do at home real quick is stop. Now, not hammer time. Normally, that's the joke I would use. But if you're driving, that's okay if you're driving, you want to listen to the podcast. But what I will say is if you are not driving, if you're at home, stop what you're doing and grab a notepad. I got a notepad right here, okay? Because our guest today, Kayce, has so many certifications and accreditations. Probably the smartest person we've ever met. Most certainly the smartest person we've had on. So the quick introduction for Kayce before I let her say it, the rest is she has a dual master's, or pursuing a dual master's, like right on the edge of this, at a major university in, Master of Education, an educational specialist degree in school psychology, also going for her applied behavioral analysis certification, and is BCBA board certified behavioral analyst certified soon or something. It sounds like she's got the FBI of fucking everything that we need to talk about. She's the specialist that we brought in, right? Like, she's the tactician. So we are super happy to have her here. She's one of our good friends, and I am really excited. And I'm going to stop before Ashad says that intro went on way too long.
If you see her signature, it's the ones that have like the whole bunch of commas, I bet. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I'm just guessing that it's going to be like her name, comma, acronym, comma, acronym, comma, acronym, and it just keeps going.
Yeah, like her LinkedIn is like 40 characters long, and it's just accreditations.
I wish it was that that wild. But thank you for the esteemed introduction. I am really happy to be here. To be honest, most of like myself and my peers didn't even know what degrees we were getting in the beginning of our program. We're just like, we're getting something while we're here, so let's do it.
Well, something will show up at the end, right? Well, I'll have some sort of diploma.
That's kind of how I felt about going to college. It was like, I'm just here. I'm happy to be here. Hopefully I get something out of it.
Exactly. I'm paying a lot of money to be here, so I hope the acronym's worth it, you know?
Oh, I'm sure it will be. I have no doubt about that. So, Kayce, can you, I guess just for our listeners, I know we went through all your accreditations and stuff you're pursuing, but can you tell us a little bit about what you do, what your expertise is in, or just anything at all? Tell us about yourself. I swear this isn't an interview.
I know, right? I'm like, I should have prepped. So I'm in my last few months of my master's degree. I'm in New York, broadcasting live from NYC. I am going to be getting a degree in school psychology to be a school psychologist. Most people don't really know what school psychologists are or do unless you've interacted with one. So basically, we assess kids for special education, making sure that they are accessing the curriculum the same way that other more like neurotypical peers do. And
what does neurotypical mean? Sorry, before you continue. I don't know these psychology terms, and I doubt our listeners do. Well, maybe some of them do, but Matt doesn't, so...
I know what that is. Screw you. Anyways, please tell us, Kayce.
Yeah. So neurotypical is just like, describes people who have very like average presentations when it comes to like their neurological development, as well as like their kind of personal profile. So I am like a neurotypical person. You know, some of my students who have specific learning disabilities or maybe like ADHD, they would be described as like neurodiverse, people with autism. stuff like that. So it's just a way to kind of be inclusive, but also be specific so you can kind of tailor the learning or, the style to the right person and the right party.
Oh, that's very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And sorry, continue.
Thanks.
I kind of butted in there.
No, please, but it's your podcast. You can. Thanks for having me on it. Yeah. So yeah. I do these reports to write them up so that the parents kind of understand how to best support their kids. Then teachers can also help them. I do individual and group counseling. I love counseling students and adolescents. So I specialize with kids from pre-K to 22, kind of right before they transition out. I'm currently interning at a school in New Jersey as part of the end of my certification. I'm working for a pediatric neuropsychologist for fun, just to learn a little bit more about like diagnosing, characterizations, presentations. And I really love working with autistic people, their families, their kids. So I'm doing some counseling and training on Long Island as well. So I'm just kind
That's
of
awesome.
helping everyone.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Wherever they can.
See, y'all thought I was joking when I said smartest person I know.
Well, I don't know about that.
I agree. But you did just say working for fun. Did you maybe mistake that with just, working? I don't know very many people that work for fun.
Well, as a grad student, you do a lot of things for fun. As in,
okay. It's like the for fun, right? Like the yeah, okay.
For the learning. And I mean, I actually am for my internship. Of course, it's unpaid, but just the agency I work for on Long Island, I do get some income there, and for the pediatric neuropsych. So it's cool. You try and get what you can in grad school because your time is the only thing that you don't have a lot of. So
of course.
Yeah, but I love it.
No, that's amazing. That sounds like you're doing some really amazing work. And, well, I've personally never talked to anyone that, is in your field, in your industry. So it's going to be very interesting for me to learn about all that. I don't know if Matt has. I mean, he knew the word neurotypical, so maybe he has talked to someone before.
Well, I mean, just in talking to like psychologists and psychiatrists about ADHD, that's always a big thing, is like neurotypicals versus is it divergence?
Diverse.
Yeah, neurodivergent, neurodiverse.
I like that one because it's like that book, The Divergence or whatever, with like the superpowered kids or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I have a superpower instead of I have this thing that is, crippling anxiety that I can't do basic tasks.
Oh, man.
You don't like being diverse? You like being divergent, though?
I like both of those. I don't want to be typical. I mean, I would love to be typical, but that's not the way the cards are dealt. So,
yeah, I don't know. I think specifically with ADHD, I think I describe it to kids and their families as having superpowers, because once you can harness your like strengths and then kind of develop your weaknesses, I think that there's parts of your brain that work better or more efficiently, I should say, than neurotypical people. So, but it's all about catching it and learning about how you're how it affects you, because it can be crippling if you don't, and you're not like self-aware of how that impacts you. Definitely.
No, that makes sense. I guess since we're on the subject of talking about like kids and autism and stuff, I know you work with them right now, but what are some, I guess, can you tell us a little bit more about how that works, how you can help someone, how you can identify kids or children that are neurodivergent?
Nice. You got it. You're going to be the pro by the end of the episode.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think it's actually really important because, I know you both have touched, on here before that there's just like a lot of stigma and a lot of what's not talked about with mental health, and I think that really translates to kids too, because, different cultures see mental health obviously in different ways, and presentations look different in different cultures. And I just think it's really important if you're, a parent, a brother, a sibling, a guardian, that you kind of keep your eyes out when someone is, struggling in some aspect or just appearing different, and whatever different looks like, because whether it's internalized, like it's anxiety or depression, or it's, something like ADHD or autism, which is just your brain's just different, or, math is hard or writing is hard. I think if you start to kind of key in early enough, like the best interventions or early interventions, you can really save a whole lot of just frustration from the kids' part. I work with a lot of kids. The pandemic, I think, has impacted students and teachers so drastically that, I mean, some kids haven't even had the opportunity to get like reading intervention because access virtually or, has been so challenging. So I guess I did want to talk a little bit about just kind of being, having like a mindful eye to the environment you're in and the people you are, because it's really uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to kind of talk about mental health, and depending on if it's within your family or, someone you don't know that well, some of those bridges can be hard to cross.
No, definitely. I mean, I feel like anytime just different for some reason for everyone seems like different is bad, but that's not the case. That's almost never the case. Different is just different. It doesn't have to be bad. In some cases, it can be really good. But it just is what it is. It's not good or bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard the latest episode, but I'm going to be having a kid in the next 6-7 months. So, I think this will be really useful for me too. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, just to learn about all this, and if knowing how to identify this stuff and how I can help, that's all stuff that, like, as a soon-to-be parent, that I think about. How to make sure that I'm aware of what's going on. How to, if I guess they are neurodivergent, right? Did I use that word still? Right? Okay. Perfect. They're neurodivergent. I know what to do. Because I see more and more parents, and especially in like our culture, in the Armenian culture, where parents are just very, I won't say ignorant about it, but they don't accept the fact that their child is different, maybe. Right. And so they keep treating them the same way, or they get mad, or, they try all this stuff because they think that the kid is just acting up, when in reality it can be, they're just different, and you need to approach them in a different way. So I'm very excited to learn about all this too.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I think to like, shed some fear potentially, or, anxiety around parenting from, what I can offer is, there, like, as a first parent, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things that you're learning, and people are going to give you all kinds of advice of all different things. All I can offer is, if, when your child is born, just be mindful of like developmental milestones, eye contact, when they sit up, when they roll over, little things like that, babbling their first word, little things like this. If there's any, and kids are all, and then this is important too, kids also are different. They develop differently. So even if they're a little delayed with maybe how they speak, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have, a speech disorder or a language disorder. I think so. Being kind of just being mindful that like your child is going to be different from other kids, but also being aware when, maybe if he or she is 2 years old and they're still not talking, like that's something that we might want to kind of just bring to our pediatrician's attention. Or, if they're in elementary school or preschool and they're not making friends, or they're having a really hard time with their schoolwork.
Right.
I think bringing it to the teacher's attention, to the school psychologist, is just the best thing you can do for the student, because to your point, Ashot, it sounds like if, someone in your family was experiencing difficulties, like as a kid in whatever aspect, it's not like it didn't go unnoticed. Like parents would try different things and help, but I think the lack of expertise is really, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's only so much you can do and know as a parent, like intuition wise. And then there's something else that can be added and offered
right.
with someone who's a little bit more, has a little couple more letters after their name, theoretically.
Oh, I completely agree. Someone who's actually studied and has some experience and expertise in whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that brings up a really good point that I want to touch on real quick, because as a kid, like learning as an adult, like I had ADHD, right? Like school came easy for me because that's typically what it is. Like, oh, you're like the gifted kid that like you just get it. But also, like, I hated doing homework. I hated all the structure and the rules and crap. And the reason I got it is because I wanted to go play video games. I was like, if I just give the teacher what they want, they'll leave me alone.
Right.
But with that, it's kind of like, you know, if your kid had a broken bone, right? Like if you had a 5-year-old and, you know, this actually happened to me and probably scarred me when I was younger. Kids playing tetherball, somebody hit the pole when they turned to swing and they twisted their ankle and had to be wheeled out on a wheelchair or whatever. And I was like, I'm never playing tetherball again. It was like a 7-year-old. I'm like, nope, not doing it. Poor Michael. I still remember that. But it's like, if your kid has a broken bone, because it's a physical thing that you can see, you're going to go get them help, right? You're going to be like, oh my God, something's wrong. Like, let me go help them. And I think like that's kind of the distinction that we have to make with the mental health side, is like, your kid may need help or a little bit of encouragement or like maybe a different structure, a different routine or whatever, but that's completely okay. It's almost the same thing as if they had like that broken bone or something. There's resources to help them, as opposed to being like, well, I can't see it and there's no bone coming out and there's no blood, so let's just kind of ignore it, right? I think that's kind of what maybe older generations felt. I know to Ashot's credit, he's did you finish the book on parenting, or are you in the middle of it still?
No, I finished one of them.
See, yeah,
I am reading other ones.
Like, he's just knocking down, like, you know, those people that their New Year resolution is to read a book a week. He's over here just like parenting this. Like, he's on top of it.
Ooh, should we find out what you've learned?
We can, sure.
Well, the first thing he learned...
I didn't realize I was going to get tested, but...
The first thing he learned is that the baby looks different than you think it looks when it comes out, because Hollywood likes to bring babies that I guess are probably older.
3 months, like, at least 3 months old, yeah.
Oh, look, it's a newborn. Like, oh my God, it's so cute. And then when you look at like a one right out of the oven, you're like, this thing needs to go back in. It's not done. Like...
I think that was the most important thing I learned. And my cousin actually brought it up. He didn't know this either. And like in the delivery room, he saw his baby come out and he's like, something is wrong with this baby, right? Like, what did you guys do? And then, you know, he then found out, his sister told him that, like, no, that's normal. That's how babies come out of the womb. But yeah, literally the first 2 pages of this book I was reading was what you think your baby's gonna look like. And it's like, you know, this perfect looking baby. And it's like, this is a 3-month-old. And then the next page, what your baby actually looks like. And it's like blue and deformed head and like the cheesy stuff all over them, and you know, birthmarks and like not bruises, but you know, like just like all this stuff all over their body.
Oh yeah. but see, that's important. It's important to kind of combat something that you originally thought or was portrayed, so that you're a little bit more prepared for, you know, when that time comes. I think that's it kind of rolls back into what we were saying with kind of keeping an eye out and being mindful. It's also kind of like what you can do to educate yourself, and, you know, just to be wary and aware of like what is out there and how students and kids are affected. I think it's important too, though, just to throw out there, culture plays like such a huge role, because not even just culture, but not all family dynamics make space for someone who is different, you know,
right.
And I think it can almost change the value or the how that person's viewed, like in their role in the family, you know. So I think that's where a lot of the ignoring and the not talking about it comes from, is part of not knowing what to do. Like, how do we do this? And also kind of some embarrassment of like, well, I don't want people to know that, you know, my sister or my child is not, you know, acting like quote unquote normal. I hate that word, but you know what I mean?
That they're different.
Yeah. Like, I think that that's really hard. And I think, you know, I don't know every culture under the sun, so I can't speak for everyone, but I know that like there's a lot of empathy, and like there's a lot that goes on with just hearing someone out and listening to them where they are, even if they're not in a place to to make a change or to get a service for the kiddo. Like, parents should, and as a future parent, you should always feel really empowered because there are experts that are going to tell you all these things, but you are going to know your child better than anyone. And you should always follow your gut. That's, I think, the best thing that I've, kind of been experiencing with parents I speak to. I always try and give them that power. It's important.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, there's so many books out there, right? And it's the same thing where it's like each of them is going to say something else. I have found one that one I was just reading about, like this pediatrician who came up with this method. And two, I just really like his name. His name is Dr. Spock. And, freaking live long and prosper.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I was just all over that. But his is really good because he explains all this stuff. But he's like, at the end of the day, like, trust your gut. Like, you're the parent, like, yeah, you shouldn't be picking up the baby every single time because they'll start, they might get too used to that and then not be able to sleep without it. But if your baby's crying and you feel like you should be picking him up, like, by all means, go and pick him up. Just don't do it all the time, right? Like, I agree with that. And sort of everyone I've talked to, my cousins that have kids and all these people, all of them say, we read the books too, or like whatever, we listen to podcasts and this, but like our baby was just different, right? And you just have to adapt. And I think the more information you have, the more ability it gives you to pivot when, you need to, it needs to change or you need to do something different. You have more tools at your disposal. So if the wrench doesn't work, you can take the screwdriver. If that doesn't work, you can take the hammer. If that doesn't work, you can take the whatever.
I was
Maybe
like,
not the best example when it comes to kids, but there's just a lot of tools.
That was a great example. No, see, I completely agree. Having more tools at your disposal is super helpful. Just don't, actually use a hammer. That wouldn't be
Yeah, no, of course.
That's what I was worried about.
I think that's why Matt was doing those faces.
I was like, wait, what? Like, if my hammer doesn't work, then a screwdriver? Like, oh shit. All right, how about like love and acceptance first, pal?
Well, no, those were just tools for some other job. I'm just saying those are available tools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, like,
use your imagination a little bit, Matt.
A shot's got one of those like 1,001 toolkits that you get at Home Depot on sale for Christmas, where like it's got every single different type of wrench, and we only need 3 of them. He's got like one of those toolboxes for his kids.
I actually don't. I'm trying to build my toolbox with all these books I'm reading and talking to people like Kayce.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm forever a resource. So, and I don't
Appreciate
know it
that.
all. So, I can help problem solve if you get to a problem with no instant solution, which is kind of, I think, most what at least I come up against all the time. It's like, wait a minute, this wasn't in chapter 2.
Now, how would you handle a man child? Just asking for a friend, somebody who just never really grew up and doesn't want to. What would your advice be to them?
Well, and what do they need help with? How would I deal with that?
This theoretical person needs help with everything.
Right.
Yeah, a buddy of mine.
Yeah, for a friend. No, I'm
does
just kidding.
Would that make you feel uncomfortable if you had to deal with a man child?
A man child? No, I think I would treat them the same way I treated
Other
a young
children?
child. Yeah.
Well, what I do think is great about it overall,
Matt, no.
you spray me with the water bottle like a cat or a dog.
Whoa, dude, you're not supposed to spray a kid with the water bottle.
Oh, I said cat or... Well, I guess it doesn't make it any better.
You're being
I said cat
a
or dog.
Oh, that's horrible.
Gosh.
Ugh.
We're
All right,
at
well, we'll just cut that part out. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Parent discipline. That's a whole separate thing we could talk about. I'm just kidding. But no, I think with any person, it's just listening. Like, I think you both have done such a great job of doing that to, believe it or not, each other on this show. And I think allowing for other people to feel heard. I know, the eye roll, But I do think that that's the most important thing you can do for man child, woman child, whatever child out there. Because especially with kids, like, they don't really have the agency or any authority. So they're most often written off or, kind of brushed aside. So giving them a space to, and in some really like the agency to have a voice, especially in adolescence, giving them some autonomy is so great and so important. So I would also recommend that to a man child, have some autonomy over your life and, take what you want, work for what you want.
Yeah, totally not advice for you, Matt. This is just for our imaginary
for
friend.
the other people out there that need that. Yeah. I do want to, if it's all right with y'all, I kind of want to shift. There's something I did want to talk about that I've heard come up over and over again on different episodes, that I think would be super beneficial to your audience.
We'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what it is, but we're very open to talking about things we've talked about.
I'm scared right now.
As you should be. No. So no, you have talked, the podcast I've listened to, you've talked a lot about different skills and techniques to like kind of manage anxiety and, different things you can do to kind of help de-escalate how you're feeling and kind of address it. But there's been a few times I've heard talking about avoiding things that cause anxiety or something that makes you uncomfortable. Like I think an example we were talking about earlier was, when you define uncomfortable, is it like sitting in an uncomfortable seat in an airplane, right? I think Ashot, you're the one that said this,
yeah.
Right? Or is it like being at a party with all of your exes? There's different severity levels of uncomfortability. But I think what's often kind of a myth or misunderstood is when you avoid something that causes you, right, so much stress or anxiety, you're actually kind of reinforcing or making that anxiety you have toward it stronger. Have you all heard about that?
I don't know about heard, but definitely experienced partially. I mean, if you've listened to some of our older episodes, I think I mentioned like one of the times I had like kind of like an anxiety attack. It was when I was at like a wedding. And so I kind of like started avoiding weddings or like big gatherings for a little bit. And it was totally, the more you avoid it, the worse it gets, right? Like at first it was like actually getting there. And it was like just the thought of having to go was giving me anxiety. Like it just built sort of more and more on top of it. And it wasn't until I started slowly reintroducing going to these things and kind of doing like exposure therapy in a sense,
right,
that, I was able to overcome it and, not have that anxiety anymore.
Yeah. And that's perfect. It's hard though, right? I'm sure it wasn't an easy process to go through.
No, totally. I mean, yeah, it makes you feel uncomfortable, kind of going back to it. It makes you feel uncomfortable, right? It's just, I think you got to take it, take small bites out of it until you can finish the whole thing, right? So, maybe one time you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but then after you do that once or twice, you get more comfortable with it or more used to it, and then you can do something else and feel a little bit more uncomfortable. It's kind of like working out, right? Like if you always went and grabbed, like for someone like Matt, who probably like, does bicep curls with like, I don't know, 50-pound weights or something. If he went and grabbed 5-pound weights every time and he just like started moving them up and down, he wasn't going to get anything out of it. He has to go and grab like 55-pound weights that are going to make his muscles a little uncomfortable and like start doing those a little bit and like get used to that so that he can like feel more comfortable in that and move up and build more muscle. And I think we mentioned a lot how the brain is a muscle. So similarly, it needs to be trained in that same way. You need to, I'll let you talk more into what you need to do, but I feel like, in my opinion, you need to expose yourself and put yourself in those situations, feel a little bit uncomfortable in order for you to be able to grow and get, overcome it.
Yeah, for me, real quick, something I talked to my therapist about was if you can avoid something forever and you choose to, and that's what makes you anxious, more power to you. But if it's something that you cannot avoid, you should probably get ahead of it before it becomes this like big issue, right? So if you're like, I'm deathly afraid of emus, don't go where the fuck emus are. I don't even know where they Australia? Like just don't go near them, right? If you're deathly afraid of sharks, you don't go in open water, but you can still go in a pool, right? But it's like if it's something like, hey, I don't like or I'm afraid of talking on the phone, there's a lot of you can book a plumber now by text, but for the most part, you probably have to call somebody, right, and explain your problem. So it's like better to do that in small doses than to like have that big moment where it's an emergency, your pipes are broken, and there's water everywhere, and you're like, oh my god, I need to call somebody now, and you refuse to do it for 3 days because you're afraid to pick up the phone.
Right. No, I completely agree. If you can avoid it, that's awesome. I mean, that's ideal, especially for your feelings and, not provoking the anxiety. I think it's also, like you both kind of touched on, if you do take baby steps and you have to be, it's something that you need help with or you're going to encounter, it's also helpful to remember that like anxiety and and just stress in general is like a temporary feeling that comes over your body, right? Like when you're in the thick of it, it feels like it's going to be here forever and it's the worst. And depending on, the severity of it, it definitely can escalate or, to be even worse. But I think what I always tell like the students I work with and friends who ask or, care for my advice is that, the feeling in all feelings, anger, sadness, like it all has a shelf life and it looks really different, but remembering that, anxiety originated for us as, as a species, as a way to keep us safe, right? It's like a biological mechanism so that we don't get eaten by a tiger, but we, our heart beats really fast. We run away, like we're not hungry, like we sweat to cool off our body, to be more efficient, like all these, pathways and processes were really to help us make it in a wilderness, and now we're navigating a very different world. So now we just are exposed to things that aren't a tiger. Maybe it's a party where all your exes are, right? Or an airplane or an emu. And I love that analogy. That's because who wouldn't be uncomfortable, right? Ooh.
No, I agree.
Which part? The emus? The emus for sure.
No, emus are cool. I just like a whole party with all your exes. Yikes.
Well, that came about because it actually happened, but they didn't feel anxious in that. I think I had a friend who they went to a wedding or some party, and whoever party they went to, like their exes were like also somehow friends with them, so like a whole bunch of their exes were also there. I mean, they didn't care, but it was just like, if you were someone that like had maybe a bad breakup or like don't really get along with your exes or something, I can see how like you would feel very uncomfortable in that situation, just like walking in and they're all just looking at you.
You're like, oh, this must be the wrong party. And you avoid it, right? No, I'm just kidding. Full circle.
Hopefully not. In those cases when you're working with kids, right? What are some techniques that you would use to help kids stop avoiding things that they might be avoiding? Or maybe not even kids, but just anyone. Like what are your recommendations when it comes to something like that? Like if Matt was deadly afraid of emus and emus were as common as birds, what would be the advice you gave Matt?
Yeah, I think I would talk to them about, well, I guess I do a few things. I would talk about them about the uncomfortability, and I'd always empathize with the fact that whatever this is, whether I agree or disagree, doesn't really matter, but it's causing a lot of distress. And so I think just having that feeling of being heard is like just so undervalued. It's such a powerful thing that anybody can do for another person. So I think that's like the first thing. Be like, okay, yeah, emus are scary.
Why are you afraid of emus, Matt? Can you tell us? We want to listen to you and want you to be heard. Can you tell us a little bit about emus and your fear of them?
I was about to say that I saw them on Dude, Where's My Car when I was a kid, but those are ostriches. So I'm afraid of big birds in general. Maybe Sesame Street scarred me when I was a kid. I would just, in this example, just say like I just don't like them. They're scary. Or I guess like I could use spiders because I'm actually afraid of spiders, right? But like just I don't like them. They're creepy. They're all over the place. When they get on me, I have to dance. To get them off. They suck.
Yeah, they do. I mean, and that's the thing is like, how often do you see spiders? I mean, Probably not super. I hope not super often, but
Not that often. I did see one about a week and a half ago crawl into my dryer. I saw it out of the corner of my eye, my peripheral vision, and I saw this like moving dot. And I'm like, what the hell? And I was like, ah! I screamed like a little girl, of course. And then every time I've used the dryer since to do my clothes, I'm very careful about that side of the dryer. I'm like, if you come out, I have a shoe somewhere, and I'm gonna find you.
I think that's totally normal.
Stay in your dryer, home, pal. Stay in your dryer.
I feel like that's a very normal reaction.
Yeah, but honestly, not that often. It's been mostly one-off. Like, my house is pretty cool. And if they're outside, I go, you're outside, you're living your best life, you're keeping the bugs away, that's fine. Just don't come inside.
Right.
Hey, Kayce, are you a Harry Potter fan, or have you read the books or watched the movies or anything?
I am a very big Harry Potter fan.
Okay, cool. Because this totally reminds me of Ron being scared of spiders. So, Matt, what you have to do is take out your wand and use the spell Ridiculous and imagine the spider with skates on its legs.
Yeah, that only works for a little bit, not when you go
it's
into...
a boggart.
What's the spider's name? Aragorn?
No, that was Lord of the Rings.
Oh, fuck. No, no, Lord of the Rings is Shelob, no?
Aragon isn't
Aragog. What's the spider's name in Harry Potter? You would both know.
I think it's Aragog.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you said Aragon. I heard it wrong.
Yeah, I thought you said Aragon too.
Okay, I messed up, but I was close. So in Wordle terms, I'm almost there. A couple more letters. Okay, like that movie. Fuck watching that in the big screen, dude. When they're like coming down, I'm like, oh god. Whew. My Apple Watch is like, are you working out right now? Just thinking about it.
Like, heart rate's increasing. Yeah, there you go. And so some techniques would be helpful. What do you do? So when you're feeling really anxious, like what's helpful for you?
If it's related to like spiders, I take it outside, or literally take it outside and bury it, kill it, whatever, whatever happens. But I mean, in general, I just try to like look at the bigger picture of it and be like, is this actually causing you issues, right? Like, did the spider get on you? Did you freak out? Like, what's going on? Or is it like a situation where I'm thinking it's like a big deal? Oh my god, it was in my dryer, it's in my clothes, it's gonna like smell me and attack me or something, right? Or is it just like, oh, okay, like that was a weird thing. I haven't seen a spider in this room in like 3-4 years. All of a sudden there's one. Maybe there's not more, hopefully. And just be like, okay, well, like next time I'm around that area, to just check that part of the dryer, make sure like it's not coming out and like scaring me when I'm not looking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like zooming out, right? Like it's like a lens, and instead of like zooming in and being like, oh my gosh, this is like starting to catastrophize, this is going to be in the dryer, it's going to be my shorts or my whatever, and kind of being like,
wait, it's in my shorts?
I mean,
oh shit!
I
never thought about that. It could have been in my clothes. I just thought it was on the dryer.
No, I'm sure it was just on the dryer, Matt. And plus, it basically walked into its own grave. It's not going to survive being in the dryer.
Yeah, I don't even know how it got. Well, I guess we probably left the window open. And kudos to the spider. It's on the second story, so you had to climb all the way up to the second story and then figure out, hey, I want to go in this person's house, like it's fucking Jack and the Beanstalk. And then like get in and then be like, now this human giant is going to kill me.
Yeah, well, where's my beans? That's what I would be thinking if I was a spider.
Yeah, and if you would have asked me like 5 years ago, I probably would have just set the house on fire and started anew somewhere else. But I'm managing it, everybody.
There you go.
You know what's a cool thing I learned about spiders is they don't actually have muscles and like joints and stuff in their legs. They control their legs using their blood pressure, which is pretty sick.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's why when a spider dies, it like the legs all curl up because there's no more blood pressure.
Oh my gosh. Well, are there spiders that have like low blood pressure or like high blood pressure and they aren't as efficient moving around?
Are
there any different spiders?
Probably. Like if they need a little Lipitor, right? For their blood pressure.
Yeah, you just put some blood pressure medication down them, and then like they can't move anymore.
All right, let's not try to make fucking super spiders over here, right? They're faster than they already are and need to be. Okay, like Jesus.
I
don't
wonder
know.
if
I
daddy
think
long
Spider-Man's
legs
cool.
need higher blood pressure because they have longer legs.
Oh yeah, I wonder.
That's good. What's interesting, I'll say this because you're on and you can help analyze this from the kid perspective. Is when I
Are
was
you
a
calling her
kid.
a kid? That's not cool.
No, me being a kid. What? Jesus. All right, you're in timeout, a shot. Normally, I'm the one that's in timeout, but today you're getting feisty. So when I was a kid, I know I'm afraid of spiders because when I was a kid, I came out of the room I was sleeping in. Right, my dad was on the couch watching TV, and he was watching the movie Arachnophobia, which like is loosely about spiders in a garage that kill a family. I don't know, right? I don't remember. I just know that night I had a nightmare that I ran out of the room to like go say something to my dad, and I checked him on the couch. He wasn't there, and I looked over in the kitchen, and my mom and my dad were wrapped up in spiders' webs, and the spiders were eating them. And then spiders, like, it was straight out of fucking Harry Potter. Honestly, J.K. Rowling probably owes me money for my nightmare. She tapped into it somehow. Like, the spiders started coming at me, like, across the floor, running at me. And I ran back into the room and, like, slammed the door. And then I woke up. And I told my dad years later, I was like, this is why I'm afraid of spiders, because you fucking let me watch that show with you. And he's like, I can't control what you were doing. You were like 5. like you're an adult, basically. And I was like, God damn it. But, so he wasn't taking responsibility for it. He's like, oh, I thought you wanted to hang out on the couch. Like, it was a cool moment. I'm like, yeah, well, I was scared. But like, I know why. But as an adult looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, you were scared because of that moment and the nightmare you had and all this other stuff. But it's like, they're not scary when it's like 1 and it's on the dryer, right? Now, if there were 5 or 6 or like a web sack or whatever, I might literally have burned down the house. I might be in a different venue.
I mean, the same thing with zombies, Matt. 1 isn't scary. It's when you have a horde of zombies coming at you that you got to be scared.
Unless Michonne's on your team, then you're
True that.
Ooh, I get that reference.
Well, I do too, which is awesome. They sorry, and I know, Kayce, you wanted to get into that, but just real quick, I was reading something online the other day, and it was talking about how like when Walking Dead first came out, he's like, they don't really explain how all these people turned into zombies, right? It just sort of like, there was an outbreak, and then all these people are zombies. He's like, now after COVID, I understand. All these people probably went up to the zombies saying, I'm not afraid of you, freedom, this, that, you can't control my life. And lo and behold, they all turned into zombies.
Oh, man.
All right.
Zombies would freak me out, though, for real. Just because the gore and the rotting, that's like, and the smell. I'm like a super sensory person, so like smells and stuff really, really get me, I think, more than most people. I can smell something very, very far away, and I'm like, oh, that needs to go. Whatever
That's
it is.
a very cool superpower to have. Because if there's zombies coming by, well, you'll always know. You can keep us, aware of that.
Yeah, I'll be on lookout duty for sure. That's not even my best superpower. That's just one.
What's your best superpower?
I can fall asleep anywhere at any time, like a snap of a finger.
Go right now. Go.
All right.
It won't make for a very interesting podcast episode, but sure.
Unless I sleep talk, then that could be interesting.
True.
Ooh.
That reminds me of who's that actor that he did a lot of movies. He could fall asleep anywhere. He was in like Rat Race and stuff.
Rowan Atkinson.
You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, he falls asleep in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like the funny dude. And he has his own movies and stuff. Hold on. I'll tell you who he is. You might be. Yeah, Rowan Atkinson.
Nice.
How do you know that, Matt? Do you know who that is, Kayce?
No, I'm horrible at actor and actresses' names.
It's Mr. Bean. There he is. That's the name I was looking for. You know Mr. Bean? Yeah.
I do know Mr. Bean.
Yeah. Because his whole thing is like he can fall asleep anywhere. And I vividly remember in Rat Race, there was an accident and he had fallen asleep and he had no broken bones or anything. And they were like, how did he survive? They're like, well, he was asleep, so he didn't tense up when the accident happened. And, he's completely fine. So that's a very cool superpower to have.
It's awesome in New York City. I commute pretty far, so I can time my naps between trains and subways. So I'm
Nice.
getting the maximum amount of sleep that I possibly can.
That's awesome.